Document. Part 1. In the year 2147, humanity stood on the brink of a new era. For centuries, people had dreamed of exploring the stars, leaving behind the confines of Earth to venture into the vastness of space. That dream finally became a reality when humans began colonizing nearby planets and moons within their solar system. Mars was thriving with settlers. Europa housed underwater research stations, and Titan's icy surface buzzed with mining operations. But just as humanity started to feel confident in its ability to conquer the cosmos, an unexpected visitor arrived. The Valens came without warning. Their ships descended silently from the heavens, hovering above Earth's atmosphere like massive, shimmering clouds. They were unlike anything humans had ever seen. Tall, slender beings with translucent skin that glowed faintly under sunlight. Their eyes were large and dark, filled with an intelligence that felt ancient and impenetrable. At first, many people thought they were here to attack or conquer, but the truth turned out to be far more unsettling. The Valens didn't come as enemies. Instead, they brought a dire warning. Through advanced translation devices, they communicated their message clearly. Humanity, they said, was not ready for the dangers of deep space. Beyond the safety of Earth's solar system lay countless threats, including something known as the Galactic Plagues. These plagues were invisible killers, carried by cosmic winds, and capable of wiping out entire civilizations. The Valens claimed no species had ever survived them, not fully, and now, with humans venturing farther into space, they too would face extinction. Dr. Emily Carter sat quietly in the conference room where this historic meeting took place. She was one of the top virologists in the world, a woman whose work had saved millions during pandemics back on Earth. With her short, brown hair tied neatly into a bun and glasses perched on her nose, she looked every bit the dedicated scientist she was. Yet, even she couldn't hide the unease creeping over her as the Valens spoke. Beside her sat Lieutenant Ryan Brooks, a pilot stationed aboard the Elysium, humanity's flagship vessel. Unlike Emily, who preferred books and microscopes, Ryan lived for adventure. His broad shoulders and steady gaze made him look like someone born to command, though his calm demeanor often masked how deeply he cared about protecting others. As the Valens described the horrors of the galactic plagues, Ryan clenched his fists tightly under the table, trying to stay composed. "They're exaggerating," whispered Alex Monroe, a young engineer sitting across from them. "There's no way. These plagues are unstoppable. We've dealt with worse before." Emily shook her head slightly, silencing him with a glance. She wasn't so sure. Over the years, she'd studied diseases caused by bacteria, viruses, and even each one presented unique challenges, but none compared to what the Valens were describing. Cosmic winds carrying pathogens, mutations faster than any cure could keep up with. It sounded impossible and yet terrifyingly plausible. As the meeting concluded, government officials thanked the Valens for their warning and assured them that humanity would take precautions. Privately, however, most leaders dismissed the threat as exaggerated. After all, humans had faced deadly illnesses before and emerged victorious. Why should this be any different? Outside the conference building, reporters swarmed around attendees, eager for details. Cameras flashed as Emily and Ryan stepped into the cool evening air. Neither of them wanted to comment, but the questions kept coming. "Dr. Carter, do you believe the Valens' claims?" One reporter shouted. Emily hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "We need to take their warnings seriously," she said at last. "If there's even a small chance these plagues exist, we must prepare ourselves." "And what about you, Lieutenant Brooks?" Another voice called out. "Do you think humanity can handle whatever's out there?" Ryan glanced at Emily briefly before answering. "We've always found a way to adapt," he replied firmly. "No matter what comes our way, we'll face it together." His words sounded confident, but inside, Ryan wasn't so sure. The Valen's description of the plagues haunted him. He couldn't shake the image of entire colonies falling victim to some invisible, unstoppable force. What if they weren't prepared? What if they failed? Back at her lab later that night, Emily pored over notes and data, searching for any clue that might help. She knew better than anyone how fragile life could be. A single strand of DNA gone wrong, a tiny mutation overlooked, it was enough to spark disaster. If the Valens were right, then humanity truly was walking blindfolded into danger. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Looking up, she saw Ryan standing there, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Figured you could use this," he said with a small smile, handing her one of the cups. "Thanks," Emily murmured, taking a sip. "I needed it." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ryan broke the silence. "You really think they're telling the truth?" Emily sighed, setting the cup down. "I don't know, but I can't ignore the possibility. If there's even a chance these plagues exist, we have to act now. Waiting until it's too late isn't an option." Ryan nodded slowly. "Then we'll figure it out. Whatever it takes." Despite his reassurance, both of them knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Humanity had only just begun to explore the stars, and already, shadows loomed on the horizon. The Valen's warning lingered in their minds, a chilling reminder of how unprepared they might be. Yet amidst the fear and uncertainty, there was also hope, a stubborn belief that no matter how daunting the challenge, humanity would rise to meet it. Little did they know, the true test was closer than anyone imagined. Document Part 6. The 72-hour deadline loomed over Emily and her team like a storm cloud. Every second counted, and the pressure was almost unbearable. The lab buzzed with frantic activity as researchers worked in shifts, their eyes red from lack of sleep. Emily barely left her workstation, her mind racing through calculations and possibilities. Alex hovered nearby, double-checking formulas and running simulations. Ryan flew back and forth between Earth and the colonies, delivering updates and gathering new samples. Despite their exhaustion, they pushed forward, driven by the knowledge that failure wasn't an option. Meanwhile, Dr. Laura Hayes continued her work in solitude. Her mountain hideout was dimly lit, the hum of equipment filling the silence. She knew time was running out, not just for humanity, but for her own credibility. If the serum failed or caused harm, it would undermine everything she'd worked for. Yet she couldn't afford to hesitate. Using the data provided by the Valens, she refined her prototype further, adding safeguards to prevent unintended side effects. Late one night, as lightning flashed across the sky, Laura received another encrypted message. This one came from Emily's team, containing detailed feedback on their tests of the serum. While promising, the results revealed a critical flaw. The serum's effectiveness diminished when exposed to certain environmental factors, such as radiation levels near Jupiter. Laura frowned, realizing this could pose a significant problem for colonies in those regions. She immediately sent a response, outlining adjustments to the formula. "We need to stabilize the molecular structure," she wrote. "Try incorporating element X42, it should counteract the instability." Back at Emily's lab, the team implemented Laura's suggestion. They synthesized a new batch of the serum and ran additional tests. To their relief, the changes improved its performance significantly. However, the process was slow and painstaking, leaving them little room for error. As the clock ticked down, tensions rose among Earth's leaders. Colonel Matthew Grayson convened another emergency meeting, this time including representatives from various governments and military branches. The atmosphere was tense, with arguments breaking out over how to proceed. "We can't wait any longer," one official insisted. "Distribute the serum now. It may not be perfect, but it's better than nothing." "Are you insane?" another countered. "Releasing an incomplete treatment could kill more people than it saves. We need to let the scientists finish their work." Grayson listened silently, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. Dr. Carter has until the deadline. After that, we'll decide based on whatever progress they've made. Emily learned about the meeting later that evening, when Ryan relayed the news. 72 hours is all we've got, he said grimly. If we don't deliver something tangible by then, they'll take matters into their own hands. Emily nodded, her jaw set with determination. Then we'll make sure they don't have to. In the final stretch, the team worked around the clock, pushing themselves to their limits. Emily coordinated efforts between her researchers and Laura, ensuring everyone stayed aligned. Alex monitored test results, tweaking variables and recalibrating equipment as needed. Ryan flew supply missions non-stop, bringing fresh samples and delivering updated instructions to colonies preparing for distribution. Despite their best efforts, challenges kept arising. Supplies dwindled, forcing them to ration materials carefully. Equipment malfunctioned under the strain of constant use, requiring quick repairs. And fatigue began to take its toll, slowing their pace and increasing the risk of mistakes. One morning, as Emily reviewed the latest round of tests, she noticed something unusual. A small subset of samples showed resistance to the serum, as if the plague had already begun adapting to it. Her heart sank. If the pathogen evolved faster than expected, even the most refined version of the serum might become obsolete. What does this mean? Alex asked, peering over her shoulder. It means we're running out of time, Emily replied, her voice heavy with concern. The plague isn't static, it's evolving. If we don't act soon, it could outpace us completely. Ryan walked in just as she finished speaking. How bad is it? Bad enough, Emily admitted, but we're not giving up. We'll keep refining the serum and hope it holds up long enough to buy us some breathing room. Unbeknownst to them, Laura Hayes faced a similar dilemma. As she analyzed the latest data from Emily's team, she realized the plague's mutations were accelerating beyond predictions. Whatever force was driving the disease seemed intent on overwhelming humanity's defenses. Frustrated but undeterred, Laura turned to the crystalline device given to her by the Valens. Perhaps it held answers she hadn't yet uncovered. Hours later, she found what she was looking for, a reference to a rogue faction within Valen society, known as the Kelith. According to the records, the Kelith specialized in biological warfare, creating pathogens capable of targeting specific species. Their motives were unclear, but their handiwork matched the characteristics of the current plague. Laura hesitated, unsure whether to trust the information. Reaching out to the Valens again felt risky, especially given the stakes. But if the Kelith were responsible, they might hold the key to stopping the plague entirely. Summoning the messenger who had acted as her liaison, Laura handed him a note. Take this to the Valen contact. Ask if the Kelith are involved if they know of a way to neutralize their creations. The messenger nodded and disappeared into the night. Hours passed before he returned, carrying a reply. The Valen confirmed the Kelith's involvement, but warned that confronting them directly would be dangerous. Instead, they offered assistance, providing access to a hidden archive containing classified research on Kelith. BIOWEAPONS. Laura wasted no time diving into the new data. What she discovered shocked her. The Kelith hadn't merely created the plague, they had engineered it to respond to specific triggers embedded in its genetic code. By identifying and disabling these triggers, it might be possible to stop the disease entirely. Excited but cautious, Laura integrated the findings into her existing formula. She adjusted the serum's molecular structure to target the triggers, effectively dismantling the plague's adaptive mechanisms. Once completed, she tested the revised version on infected samples. The results were astonishing. The pathogen collapsed almost instantly, leaving healthy cells intact. This could actually work, Laura whispered, tears welling in her eyes. For the first time since the outbreak began, she allowed herself to believe humanity might survive. She quickly sent the updated formula to Emily's team, along with detailed instructions for synthesis. "This is our best shot," she wrote. "Use it wisely." When Emily received the message, she gathered her team for an emergency briefing. "This is it," she said, holding up the document. "Dr. Hayes believes this version can stop the plague permanently, but we need to move fast before it evolves again." Everyone sprang into action, working tirelessly to produce enough serum for widespread distribution. Factories repurposed production lines, churning out vials at record speed. Military transports stood ready to deliver the treatment to affected colonies, while medical teams prepared quarantine zones for mass inoculation as the deadline approached. Colonel Grayson arrived at the lab, his face stern. "Is it ready?" Emily nodded, exhaustion evident in her voice. "It's ready. Not perfect, but it's our only chance." Grayson studied her for a moment before nodding. "Then let's do it. Distribute the serum globally and pray it works." With that, the operation launched. Ships carrying crates of the serum departed Earth, heading toward colonies ravaged by the plague. Medical teams administered the treatment to patients, monitoring their conditions closely. Initial reports were promising symptoms subsided rapidly, and recovery rates soared. Yet, even as hope spread, questions lingered. Who were the Keleth, and why had they targeted humanity? Could the Valens truly be trusted, or were they hiding something? And most importantly, had they truly stopped the plague or merely delayed its inevitable return? For now, though there was reason to celebrate, humanity had faced extinction and fought back against impossible odds. In labs and factories, aboard ships and in hospitals, ordinary people had risen to meet the challenge. Together, they had proven that even in the darkest moments, resilience and ingenuity could light the way forward. And somewhere in the shadows, Dr. Laura Hayes watched silently, knowing the battle was far from over, but confident that humanity had taken its first step toward survival. Document. Part 3 days turned into weeks, and the plague continued to spread across the solar system. The glowing clouds of particles near Jupiter grew denser, swirling unpredictably, as if feeding off the chaos they caused. Colonies fell silent. One by one, their inhabitants either dead or quarantined behind sealed doors. Communication from affected areas became sporadic, with desperate messages cutting out mid-sentence. It was clear that humanity's defenses were crumbling under the weight of an enemy it didn't fully understand. Dr. Emily Carter worked tirelessly in her lab, driven by a mix of determination and desperation. She barely slept, surviving on coffee and short naps at her desk. Her team followed suit, each member consumed by the same singular goal, finding a way to stop the plague. Yet, despite their efforts, every experiment ended in failure. The strange energy signature they'd identified resisted analysis. Slipping through their grasp like smoke, Lieutenant Ryan Brooks flew back and forth between Earth and the colonies, delivering supplies and evacuating survivors when possible. Each trip left him more shaken than the last. He saw things no one should ever have to witness: entire families wiped out overnight, children crying over lifeless parents, once thriving settlements reduced to ghost towns. The weight of it pressed down on him, but he pushed forward, knowing there was no time for grief. Back on Earth, public fear reached a breaking point. Governments struggled to maintain order as protests erupted in cities worldwide. People demanded answers, accusing leaders of incompetence and secrecy. Conspiracy theories spread like wildfire, blaming everything from alien sabotage to corporate greed. Some even claimed the Valens had deliberately unleashed the plague to test humanity's resilience. Amid the chaos, Colonel Matthew Grayson, Menuza, stern military official tasked with overseeing the crisis, called an emergency meeting. "We're losing control," Grayson said bluntly, his voice echoing in the conference room. "If we don't find a solution soon, this entire operation will collapse." Emily sat quietly at the table, her hands clasped tightly together. She knew what was coming next. For weeks, Officials had been pressuring her to release any potential treatment, regardless of whether it was ready. But releasing an incomplete cure could make things worse, potentially accelerating the disease's mutations. Still, the pressure mounted daily. Dr. Carter, Grayson continued, turning his steely gaze toward her. How close are you to a breakthrough? Emily hesitated, choosing her words carefully. We've made progress, but it's not enough. Rushing a treatment now could do more harm than good. Grayson's jaw tightened. With all due respect, Doctor, we're running out of time. People are dying by the thousands. We need results now. Ryan spoke up before Emily could respond. Sir, forcing something untested won't help anyone. If anything, it could make the plague stronger. I'm aware of the risks, Lieutenant, Grayson snapped. But doing nothing isn't an option, either. Public morale is collapsing. We need to show people we're fighting back. The tension in the room was palpable. Emily glanced at Ryan, who gave her a subtle nod of support. She took a deep breath and addressed the group. I understand the urgency, but science takes time. If we rush this, we risk creating a bigger disaster. Trust me, I know how much is at stake. Her words seemed to soften some of the officials, but Grayson remained unconvinced. Fine, he said finally. You have 48 hours. After that, we'll consider other options. When the meeting ended, Emily felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her. 48 hours wasn't nearly enough time, but she couldn't afford to dwell on it. As she returned to her lab, Alex Monroe greeted her with a hopeful smile. You handled that well, he said. Grayson's a tough guy, but I think you got through to him. I hope so, Emily replied, dropping into her chair. But even if we get more time, I'm not sure it'll be enough. Alex placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Hey, we've come this far. We'll figure it out. Despite his optimism, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something crucial. She stared at the glowing particles captured in their samples, replaying Alex's discovery of the swirling clouds near Jupiter. There had to be a connection, something they weren't seeing yet that night. Ryan visited the lab again, bringing food and updates from the field. His face was grim as he recounted stories from Mars, where entire districts had been sealed off. Survivors begged for help, but there was little anyone could do. The image of a young boy clutching a stuffed animal stayed with him, haunting his thoughts. How are you holding up? Ryan asked, watching Emily scribble notes on a whiteboard. As well as can be expected, she muttered without looking up. This thing, it's like it's mocking us. Every time we think we're close, it slips away. Ryan sighed, leaning against the counter. Maybe we're approaching this wrong. What if it's not just about finding a cure? What if we need to figure out where it came from? Emily paused, considering his words. You might be onto something. The Valens mentioned cosmic winds carrying these plagues, if we can trace the source. But how? Alex interrupted, joining the conversation. Even if we pinpoint the origin, getting there won't be easy. Those clouds are near Jupiter, surrounded by radiation and debris. It's risky, Ryan admitted. But if it gives us a chance to stop this, it's worth it. Emily nodded slowly. Then we'll need a plan, and fast. Over the next day, they devised a strategy. Ryan would lead a reconnaissance mission to gather more data on the clouds, while Emily and Alex worked on analyzing the energy signature further. Time was critical, and every second counted as Ryan prepared for the mission. Emily couldn't shake the feeling of dread gnawing at her. Sending him into such danger felt wrong, but she knew they had no choice. Be careful, she told him before he left. We can't afford to lose you. Ryan smiled faintly. Don't worry about me. Just focus on finding a way to stop this thing. The mission proved more challenging than anticipated. The swirling clouds emitted bursts of electromagnetic energy, disrupting navigation systems and forcing Ryan to rely on manual controls. Despite the hazards, he managed to collect valuable samples, sending them back to Earth via drone. By the time he returned, exhausted but alive, Emily and Alex were already hard at work, examining the new data. Their findings confirmed what they suspected. The clouds acted as carriers for the plague, spreading it through space like pollen on the wind. But there was something else, an underlying pattern hidden within the energy waves. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but unmistakably artificial. "This isn't natural," Alex murmured, staring at the readings. "Someone or something created this." Emily's mind raced. If the plague was man-made, or rather, alien-made, then perhaps its creators held the key to stopping it. But reaching them wouldn't be easy. The Valens had vanished after their initial warning, leaving no way to contact them. Without their guidance, humanity was on its own. Desperation began to creep in, but Emily refused to let it consume her. She rallied her team, reminding them why they started this fight in the first place. "We've faced impossible odds before," she said firmly, "and we've always found a way. This is no different." Her words reignited a spark of hope, pushing everyone to work harder. Late into the night, the lab buzzed with activity as researchers pored over data, ran simulations, and tested theories. Outside, the world teetered on the brink of collapse. But inside those walls, determination burned brighter than ever. Unbeknownst to them, help was closer than they realized. A mysterious figure watched from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to step forward. Little did Emily and her team know, their greatest ally hadn't come from Earth or even humanity. All. Document. Part 2 months passed after the Valens' ominous warning, and life seemed to return to normal, or as normal as it could be in a world where humans were spreading across the stars. The initial panic had faded, replaced by skepticism. Many dismissed the Valens' claims as exaggerated or even fabricated. After all, humanity had faced plagues before, from smallpox to pandemics caused by engineered viruses. Each time, science and determination had prevailed. Why should this be any different? Dr. Emily Carter, however, couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She spent long hours in her lab, analyzing data and running simulations based on what little information the Valens had provided. Her nights grew longer, her coffee consumption higher, and her sleep shorter. Still, she found no concrete evidence of the so-called galactic plagues. But deep down, she knew better than to trust appearances. Diseases didn't announce themselves with fanfare. They crept silently, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Lieutenant Ryan Brooks, meanwhile, continued his duties aboard the Elysium. He flew supply missions to colonies scattered across the solar system, delivering food, medicine, and equipment. On one such mission to Titan, he noticed something odd. The settlers there seemed unusually quiet, their faces pale and drawn. When he asked about it, they brushed him off, saying it was just fatigue from the harsh environment. But Ryan wasn't convinced. Something about their demeanor unsettled him. It wasn't until weeks later that the first reports came in. A mining outpost on Europa reported strange symptoms among its workers: high fevers, hallucinations, and rapid aging. At first, the cases were isolated, but soon they began spreading. Within days, entire teams were falling ill, their bodies breaking down faster than anyone could understand. Desperate messages poured into Earth's Central Command, pleading for help. Emily received the news while reviewing test results late at night. Her phone buzzed incessantly on the desk, breaking the silence of her lab. Picking it up, she saw multiple urgent notifications flashing across the screen. Her heart sank as she read through them. This wasn't just a localized issue, it was happening on multiple moons and planets. Simultaneously, she immediately called an emergency meeting with her team. "We need to act fast," she said, pacing back and forth. "If this is what I think it is, we're dealing with something far beyond anything we've encountered before." Ryan arrived shortly after, having been summoned from his latest mission. His usually calm demeanor was replaced by tension as he listened to Emily explain the situation. "How bad is it?" he asked, his voice low. "Bad," Emily replied. "The symptoms match some of the descriptions the Valens gave us. Rapid deterioration, no clear cause. It's like the body is being consumed from the inside out." The next few days turned into chaos. More colonies reported outbreaks, each case more severe than the last. Scientists scrambled to identify the source, but every test came back inconclusive. Whatever was causing the illness didn't behave like a typical virus or bacteria. It resisted conventional treatments and spread with alarming speed. Emily worked tirelessly alongside her colleagues, examining samples sent from affected areas. They wore protective suits in the lab, knowing full well the risks involved. Despite their precautions, the disease seemed to mock their efforts. Every hypothesis led to a dead end. Frustration mounted as hours turned into days without progress. Ryan did what he could to help, flying medical supplies and researchers to the hardest-hit regions. He witnessed firsthand the devastation wrought by the plague. On Europa, he saw miners lying unconscious in makeshift hospitals, their skin gray and cracked, as if decades had passed overnight. On Titan, children cried for parents who had succumbed within hours of showing symptoms. The scenes haunted him, replaying in his mind whenever he closed his eyes. Back on Earth, public fear reached a fever pitch. News outlets broadcast constant updates, fueling panic. People demanded answers, accusing governments of hiding the truth. Protests erupted in cities worldwide, with crowds chanting slogans like, "Save our colonies." And why weren't we warned? Amid the turmoil, Emily found herself under intense scrutiny. Some praised her dedication, calling her humanity's best hope against the plague. Others blamed her for not finding a solution quickly enough. The pressure weighed heavily on her shoulders, but she refused to give up. Late one night, as she stared at rows of failed experiments, Alex Monroe walked into the lab. Alex was a young engineer who had been assisting Emily since the outbreak began. With his scruffy beard and ever-present clipboard, he looked more like a college student cramming for exams than a scientist fighting a global crisis. Yet his sharp mind and relentless optimism made him invaluable. "You look like you haven't slept in days," Alex said, setting down a tray of food. "Eat something. You won't solve this by collapsing." Emily managed a weak smile. "I wish it were that simple. I know it's tough," Alex replied, "but we'll figure it out. We always do." His words offered little comfort, but Emily appreciated the sentiment. Together, they reviewed the latest data, searching for patterns or anomalies. As dawn approached, Emily finally spotted something unusual, a faint trace of energy embedded in one of the samples. It was unlike anything she'd seen before, almost as if it existed outside the known spectrum. This might be it," she whispered, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "Whatever's causing the plague, it's not biological. It's something else entirely." Alex leaned closer, studying the readings. "What does that mean? Are we dealing with alien tech, or something worse?" Emily shook her head. "I don't know yet, but if we can isolate this energy signature, we might have a chance at understanding how it works." The discovery reignited their hope, but time was running out. Reports poured in of new outbreaks on Mars and Ganymede. Hospitals overflowed with patients, many of whom died before receiving treatment. Governments imposed strict quarantines, sealing off infected planets to prevent further spread. While necessary, the measures only added to the growing sense of despair. Ryan returned to Earth briefly, bringing fresh samples from the front lines. He found Emily hunched over her microscope, her face illuminated by the soft glow of monitors. "Any progress?" he asked, setting the containers on the counter. "Maybe," she replied, rubbing her temples. "There's something strange about the pathogen. It doesn't behave like anything natural. We think it might be connected to the cosmic winds the Valens mentioned." Ryan frowned, So, they were telling the truth. It seems so, Emily admitted. But knowing that doesn't make stopping it any easier. As they talked, Alex burst into the room, clutching a tablet. You need to see this, he said breathlessly. On the screen was footage from a surveillance drone stationed near Jupiter. Swirling clouds of glowing particles surrounded one of the moons, moving erratically, as if alive. That's where the outbreaks started, Alex explained. Could these particles be carrying the plague? Emily's mind raced. If the disease originated from those clouds, then humanity faced a threat unlike any other. Not only was it spreading rapidly, but it was also adapting, evolving faster than anyone could keep up with. For the first time, she allowed herself to consider the possibility that the Valence might have been right. Humans truly weren't ready for this. Yet even as doubt crept in, Emily reminded herself why she became a scientist in the first place. To save lives, to push boundaries, to prove that no challenge was insurmountable. With renewed determination, she turned back to her work, vowing to find a way to stop the plague before it claimed billions more. Outside, the sun rose over the horizon, casting light on a world gripped by fear. But in that lab, amidst the chaos and uncertainty, a flicker of hope remained. Document. Part 5. The days following the encrypted message were tense but productive. Emily, Ryan, and Alex worked around the clock, driven by the knowledge that someone, Dr. Laura Hayes, was out there, piecing together a solution. The lab buzzed with activity as they analyzed the stolen data alongside the information provided by the mysterious messenger. Each discovery brought them closer to understanding the plague, yet the complexity of it all left them humbled. Colonel Matthew Grayson, however, grew increasingly suspicious. He had been monitoring their progress closely, his sharp eyes missing nothing. When reports reached him about unauthorized access to classified databases, he wasted no time confronting Emily. You're walking a dangerous line, Dr. Grayson, said one afternoon, standing in the doorway of her lab. His voice was calm but carried an edge that made everyone uneasy. Care to explain why restricted military files were accessed under your name? Emily froze for a moment, then forced herself to remain composed. She turned to face him, meeting his steely gaze head-on. We needed those files to understand the plague better. Without them, we wouldn't have made the progress we have. Grayson's jaw tightened. Progress? You mean breaking protocol and risking national security? Do you realize the implications of what you've done? Ryan stepped forward, stepping between Emily and Grayson. Sir, if she hadn't taken that risk, we'd still be stuck trying random experiments. Whatever's in those files is helping us fight back. Grayson glared at Ryan. Lieutenant, I suggest you stay out of this unless you want to join her on charges. The room fell silent. Alex watched nervously from his workstation, unsure whether to speak up or stay quiet. Emily took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. Colonel, I understand the gravity of my actions, but right now, humanity is facing extinction. If bending a few rules saves billions of lives, I'll take full responsibility. Grayson studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he sighed. Fine. For now, I'll grant you temporary clearance, but if anything else goes wrong or if I find out you've crossed another line, you won't get a second chance. As soon as he left, the tension in the room eased slightly. Ryan exhaled sharply. That could have gone worse. Emily nodded, though her hands trembled as she returned to her work. Let's just focus on getting results. We don't have time for distractions. Meanwhile, far away in a secluded mountain hideout, Dr. Laura Hayes pored over the data sent to her by the messenger. Her lab was small, but packed with advanced equipment scavenged from abandoned research facilities. Shelves lined the walls, stacked with books, notes, and strange alien artifacts she'd collected over decades. Laura herself was a striking figure, her silver-streaked hair tied back in a loose bun, her piercing blue eyes reflecting years of wisdom and determination. She worked tirelessly, fueled by caffeine and sheer willpower. The information from Emily and her team confirmed much of what Laura already suspected. The plague wasn't natural. It bore the hallmarks of deliberate design, a weaponized pathogen designed to adapt and evolve faster than any cure could keep pace. What puzzled her was its origin. While the Valens had warned Earth about galactic plagues, Laura doubted they were responsible. Something deeper and darker was at play. Late one night, as lightning illuminated the stormy skies outside, Laura received another encrypted message. This one came not from Emily, but from an unknown sender. Intrigued, she opened it and found a set of coordinates along with a brief note. Asterisk if you seek answers. Come here, asterisk. Laura hesitated. Trusting anonymous messages was risky, especially given the stakes. But curiosity got the better of her. Gathering a few essentials, she set out into the storm. Driving through winding mountain roads until she reached the location marked on the map. It was an old observatory, long abandoned and crumbling with age. As she approached, a figure emerged from the shadows. To her surprise, it wasn't human, it was a Valen. I wasn't expecting visitors, Laura said cautiously, keeping her distance. Especially not one of you. The Valen tilted its head, studying her with its large, dark eyes. We are aware of your efforts, Dr. Hayes. Humanity requires aid, and we cannot stand idly by while the plague consumes them. Laura frowned. You've known about this all along. Why wait until now to act? The truth is complicated, the Valen replied. There are factions within our society who disagree on how to handle this crisis. Some believe humans must face the plague alone to prove their worth. Others, like myself, see value in collaboration. So, what do you propose? Laura asked, skepticism evident in her tone. We offer knowledge, the Valen said. Information on similar outbreaks across the galaxy, treatments developed by other species, and insights into the nature of the plague itself. Use it wisely. With that, the Valen handed her a small crystalline device before disappearing into the night. Laura stared at the object in her hand, its surface glowing faintly. She didn't fully trust the Valens, but she couldn't deny the potential value of what they'd given her. Back at her lab, Laura inserted the crystal into her computer. Streams of data flooded the screen: genetic sequences, experimental protocols, and detailed analyses of past plagues. It was overwhelming but invaluable. For hours, she sifted through the information, cross-referencing it with the data from Emily's team. Slowly, patterns began to emerge. This could work, Laura muttered to herself, jotting down notes furiously. If I combine their methods with ours. Her breakthrough came unexpectedly. By integrating alien technology with human ingenuity, Laura formulated a prototype serum capable of targeting the plague's adaptive core. Unlike traditional vaccines, which focused on specific strains, this serum operated on a molecular level, neutralizing the disease's ability to mutate. Excited but cautious, Laura tested the serum on samples infected with the plague. The results were promising. The pathogen's energy signature weakened significantly, though it didn't disappear entirely. More refinement was needed, but it was a start. Determined to share her findings, Laura contacted the messenger who had acted as her liaison with Emily's team. Tell them we're close, she instructed, but stress that this isn't ready yet. Rushing it could make things worse. The message reached Emily and her team the next morning. They gathered in the lab, poring over Laura's notes and discussing the implications. Despite the progress, doubts lingered. Could they really trust a rogue scientist working in secret? And what role did the Valens play in all this? We don't have a choice, Emily finally said, breaking the silence. Even if it's not perfect, it's better than nothing. Let's build on what she's given us. Ryan nodded. Agreed. But we need to stay vigilant. If something feels off, we pull back immediately. Work resumed with renewed intensity. Emily and Alex focused on refining Laura's prototype, tweaking its formula to enhance its effectiveness. Ryan coordinated delivery missions, ensuring colonies received updated medical supplies and instructions for containment. Together, they formed a fragile chain of hope stretching across the solar system. Yet, even as they pushed forward, cracks began to show. Supplies dwindled, resources stretched thin, and morale faltered. Protests escalated on Earth, with angry crowds demanding immediate action. Governments debated whether to distribute the incomplete serum, arguing that doing so might prevent further loss of life even at the cost of potential side effects. One evening, as Emily reviewed the latest test results, she received a call from Colonel Grayson. His tone was gruff but urgent. "Doctor, we need an update. People are losing patience. Are you close to a solution or not?" Emily hesitated, weighing her response. "We're making progress, but it's not ready. Releasing it prematurely could cause more harm than good." Grayson sighed. "You have 72 hours. After that, we'll make the decision ourselves." When the call ended, Emily slumped into her chair, exhaustion washing over herself. 72 hours wasn't enough time to guarantee success, but she knew they couldn't afford to fail. Outside, the world teetered on the brink of collapse, but inside the lab, determination burned brighter than ever. Unbeknownst to them, Laura Hayes was watching closely, ready to step in if needed. Humanity's survival depended on their combined efforts, and the fragile alliance forming between two worlds. Document. Part 4. The next morning began with a strange knock on the lab door. Emily glanced up from her microscope, surprised to see someone standing outside at such an early hour. She motioned for Alex to open it, and when the door swung wide, a young man stepped inside. He looked out of place in his worn jacket and dusty boots, as if he'd traveled a long way to get here. His dark hair was tousled, and his eyes darted nervously around the room. "Can I help you?" Emily asked, removing her gloves and walking over. The man hesitated before speaking. "My name is Alex Monrono, relation," he added quickly, glancing at Alex, who raised an eyebrow. "I'm here because of Dr. Laura Hayes." Emily frowned. "Dr. Hayes? Who is she?" Well, let's just say she's one of the best minds in virology." "Maybe the best," he said, lowering his voice. "She sent me to deliver a message. She thinks she can help stop the plague, but only if you're willing to trust her." Ryan, who had been leaning against the counter, sipping coffee, straightened up. "Hold on. How do we know this isn't some kind of trick?" The man held up his hands defensively. "I don't blame you for being cautious, but if you want proof, check this." He pulled a small device from his pocket and placed it on the table. It looked like a USB drive, but its surface shimmered faintly, unlike anything Emily had ever seen. "What is that?" Alex asked, picking it up cautiously. "It contains information about the plague, things even you might not have discovered yet," the man explained. "Dr. Hayes has been working on this for years, studying patterns in diseases across the galaxy. She believes the key to stopping the plague lies in classified data locked away by Earth's governance." Emily studied him carefully. There was something earnest in his expression, but trusting a stranger felt risky. Still, they were running out of options. "If what you're saying is true, why didn't Dr. Hayes come herself?" "She can't," the man replied. "She's in hiding. The work she does, it's dangerous. If certain people found out, they'd shut her down or worse." Ryan crossed his arms. "This sounds too convenient. A mysterious scientist in hiding with all the answers. How do we know she's legit?" "We don't," Emily admitted. "But right now, we can't afford to ignore any leads, even if it's a long shot." Alex nodded in agreement. "Let's at least see what's on the device. If it's fake, we'll know soon enough." With that, Emily inserted the shimmering USB into her computer. As the files loaded, her eyes widened. The data was unlike anything she'd encountered before. Complex algorithms, energy signatures, and detailed analyses of extraterrestrial pathogens. Some of it matched their own findings, while other parts introduced entirely new concepts. This is incredible, Emily whispered, scrolling through the documents. Whoever put this together knows more about the plague than anyone else. The man smiled faintly. That's Dr. Hayes for you. She's spent her life preparing for something like this. Ryan leaned closer, scanning the screen. So, what's the catch? What does she need from us? She needs access to restricted databases, the man explained. Specifically, records from military research projects and alien artifacts recovered during space exploration. Without that, she won't be able to complete her work. Emily sighed, rubbing her temples. Getting clearance for that won't be easy. Most of those files are sealed under top-secret protocols. I know, the man said. But if anyone can make it happen, it's you. For the rest of the day, Emily debated whether to pursue the lead. On one hand, the data on the USB seemed genuine, offering insights that could save billions of lives. On the other hand, breaking into classified systems would risk everything, not just her career, but potentially her freedom. Yet, as she watched footage of another colony falling victim to the plague, she knew they couldn't wait for permission. That evening, she called Ryan and Alex into her office. We're going to do it, she said firmly. We'll hack into the databases and get Dr. Hayes what she needs. Ryan raised an eyebrow. You realize how risky this is, right? If we get caught, I know, Emily interrupted. But we're out of time. Every hour we waste, more people die. If there's even a chance this works, we have to take it. Alex nodded. Then count me in. Let's figure out how to pull this off. The plan came together quickly. Using Alex's engineering skills and Ryan's connections within the military, they identified weak points in the security systems guarding the databases. Late that night, they gathered in a secure server room beneath the lab, surrounded by humming computers and blinking lights. This is it, Alex said, typing furiously on a keyboard. Once I bypass the firewall, we'll have 10 minutes max to download the files before someone notices. Make it quick, Ryan urged, keeping watch near the door. If anyone shows up, I'll stall them. As Alex worked, Emily monitored the progress on a nearby screen. Her heart raced as lines of code scrolled past, each second feeling like an eternity. Finally, a window popped up displaying the restricted files. Got it, Alex exclaimed. Downloading now. Within minutes, the transfer was complete. They quickly erased any traces of their intrusion and slipped out of the server room unnoticed. Back in the lab, Emily uploaded the stolen data onto the shimmering USB and handed it to the mysterious messenger. Take this to Dr. Hayes, she instructed. Tell her we're counting on her. The man nodded solemnly. She won't let you down. After he left, the weight of what they'd done settled over them. Hacking into classified systems was illegal, and if they were caught, the consequences would be severe. But none of them regretted their decision. For the first time in weeks, there was a glimmer of hope, a chance that someone, somewhere, might hold the key to stopping the plague. Over the next few days, Emily threw herself back into her research, analyzing the new data alongside the team. Meanwhile, Ryan flew supply missions to affected colonies, bringing back samples and updates. Despite the mounting casualties, there was a renewed sense of purpose among them. They weren't fighting blindly anymore. They had a direction, however uncertain. One evening, as Emily reviewed the latest findings, her phone buzzed with an encrypted message. It was from an unknown sender, containing a single line, * progress made. Await further instructions. * Her hands trembled as she read the words. Whoever Dr. Hayes was, she was already hard at work. For the first time since the outbreak began, Emily allowed herself to believe they might actually stand a chance. Outside, the world remained engulfed in chaos. Protests continued, governments struggled to maintain control, and the death toll climbed higher each day. Yet, in that lab, amidst the fear and uncertainty, a fragile thread of hope remained. Humanity wasn't alone in this fight, not anymore. Somewhere out there, a brilliant mind was working tirelessly to save them all, and though they didn't know it yet, their greatest ally wasn't human at all.